Hi, this is Lisa Rangel with Chameleon Resumes, the premier executive resume writing company, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about what executive resumes need to look like in 2022, and most specifically, what executives leave out when they're updating their resumes in 2022. So, there's been a lot of changes in what resumes need to look like over the last couple of years. And we, 5-6 years ago, we've shifted from a task-based type resume to an achievement-based type resume. And obviously, we still want an achievement-based executive resume, but there's been even more changes due to the pandemic and how leadership has had to grow and manifest and change over the last couple of years to remain effective. So that obviously affects how a resume is written because it changes what you should be reflecting about yourself. So we're going to talk about, again, what executives typically forget about or leave out when they're updating their resume in 2022. I want to talk to you about that today. So the first thing that I see executives do as a mistake is they take their own, their old resume and they simply update it. And what they don't do is they're not strategic about how they're going about their next move and thinking about what they want and then looking at what that target job entails and what it needs, and then making sure that they're cherry picking the right stories and the right achievements to put in their executive resume. So they're not strategic about doing the document. They're simply, updating what they've had, but they're really not thinking, forward, and they're not thinking strategic. And that's a problem because as you get higher up the ranks, people want to see how you are going to be able to help them by how you've done it in the past. So you need to cherry pick what you are choosing to reflect in your resume. So this way the reader can feel like what you do and what you bring to the table speaks to what they need. So that's mistake number one, that executives are not strategic about doing their resume. The second mistake, and I've kind of alluded to it in number one, is they're primarily looking backwards, and they view their document, they view their resume, their executive resume, as a documentation of everything they've ever done. And they go back, the 20, 25, 30, 35 years, they document everything. And, it's not, you have to remember, a resume is a marketing document. It's not a catalog of everything you've ever done. So the key is to, again, go back to number one, be strategic about what you're looking for and look forward in writing your document. You want to make sure that you're cherry picking the right achievements to speak to what you are going for and not being so focused on the past and looking at what you've done. So you need to look at what you've done in terms of how it speaks to what you want going forward. You can't only look backwards. That's really mistake number two, is that executives only look backwards when they're writing their executive resume. They're viewing it as this document that pontificates everything they've done and their brag sheet about everything they've ever done. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of what you put on your resume. You obviously have to be, but you need to be selective about what you put on the document. Make sure the document really isn't more than 2 pages. There's always select individuals that maybe could warrant a 3-page resume. It definitely does not need to be only 1 page when you have, over 10 years of experience. Certainly if you have over 20 years experience, 2 pages is absolutely fine. But, regardless of the length you choose, right, whether it's 2 pages or 3 pages, and honestly, for most people, 2 pages is fine. 3 pages is not needed. But if you do need to be one of those individuals that has 3, remember this, right? Is everything you're putting on that document selling you for what you want next? Or are you just documenting what you've done? That's the key. That's the gut check, right? And again, it's a marketing document. It's not a catalog, right? It's not an obituary. It's a marketing document to sell you into the next job and getting an interview for that consideration. So that's the key, is don't look backwards, right? That's mistake number 2, is the executive looks backwards and feels like they have to document everything to justify why they're qualified. And that actually has a backfiring effect because now you've overwhelmed the reader with everything that you've done, of which maybe 50% on a good day is truly relevant. And now you've overwhelmed them with all the stuff that isn't relevant. So you want to make sure that you are looking forward when you are writing your document. And then the third mistake that I see executives make, and particularly executives, although everyone can make this mistake, I see it particularly at the executive level. And the mistake is that you fail to sell yourself, right? I see executives rise up the ranks, right? There's CXO, executive VP of X, senior director of X. They've arrived, right? They have a pinnacle type of role and they're looking for the next pinnacle type role. But because they've reached this echelon, they think everybody understands, like, well, of course I have achievements. I couldn't have gotten here if I didn't have achievements. Well, yeah, but you're competing against everyone else that has that same CXO, executive VP of X, senior director of X job, title. So you need to show in achievement-like manner language how you have done it better or differently than those other individuals with a similar title that you have, right? You're competing. It's not a vacuum, right? It's not just you applying to that job where, you can assume what a CFO does, right? Or a CMO or, an executive director of finance. You need to demonstrate how you are the best executive director of finance looking for that next step role. So you need to sell yourself. You can't just think your title's going to carry you or the quality of the company you worked for is going to carry you. Because you most likely are going to be up against individuals that have the same caliber of experiences. And so you need to set yourself apart in terms of how you've done better. And you need to set yourself apart how you've done it differently. And so that's the key, is you need to never forget that you have to sell yourself. That is the one thing that I see a lot of executives do. And it pains me because, and believe me, I get it, right? I've been doing what I do for over 20 years. I do it pretty well. I've worked with some pretty amazing people, and I would love for all that to speak for me and not have to market myself every day, right? But that's not reality. And that's, and you might, dismiss me and say, well, you're a business owner, Lisa. Of course you have to market your business, but I'm telling you, it's the same. It's the same whether you are an employee at the staff level. It's the same if you're an employee at the executive level. It's the same if you're a business owner at any level. We always need to be in the position that we know we have to sell ourselves and communicate our worth to others. Not to say that in communicating our worth, that means we have it. We're worthy no matter whether we communicate it or not. But if we want others to recognize it, we have to learn how to communicate it, or we're going to end up being frustrated. So, make sure that you sell yourself always and know that you have to, and have that humility that you are not different than others in the sense that you always need to be selling yourself. And then the fourth mistake that I see people make is they're not modernizing their document. And by modernizing, I mean talking about the skills that, frankly, for a lot of executives have kind of always needed to be promoted, but never really were valued until the pandemic. And that's, talking about how you've retained your people, or what you've learned from not retaining your people, what you've done to adjust to a remote working environment, or what you did to lead setting your business, your employer up in a remote work environment, right? As maybe a CTO or a CIO. How you did crisis management, how you responded, how you did it well, maybe some places where you learned you can do it better, where you pivoted based on immediate market changes, right? That's definitely what we all learned in the pandemic, is that there's some immediate market changes sometimes. How did you pivot to keep your business going? Or how did you learn how to fail quickly? So this way you can repivot resources in another direction in order to make up that revenue or retain that staff. So, you want to show how fast you've learned from your mistakes, as well as advertise your wins, because that's important nowadays. And showing how you've done crisis management, talent retention, talent attraction. Again, those have always been executive level skills and traits that we've been putting on resumes even prior to the pandemic. But I'm telling you, if they're not on there now, it doesn't look like it's modern. It doesn't look like it's addressing what's going on today. If you put that stuff on your resume in 2018 and 19, you just looked a little bit, more ahead of everybody else. Now, that's like required, because if you don't have achievements like that articulated on a resume today, people wondered what you did during the pandemic. So, and I know you have them, right? So I don't say that as a dig. Everyone has them, because we had to manage through it either well or averagely or poorly, right? So we all have them, and we've all done it well, average and poorly at it. So because we're human. So that's the key, is to cherry pick the ones that are relevant, that speak to what your future employer wants and what you're looking to do. And, so again, be strategic, don't look backwards, make sure you sell yourself, and be modern in how you do it. So if this interests you and you want to know what that strategic, forward-looking, achievement-based modern document looks like, I'm going to be doing a live webinar to show you what a resume needs to look like to land a 6- and 7-figure interview. And so you'll want to register using the link below. And I look forward to seeing you there. So if you've liked this video, I'm going to ask you to like it. If you know someone who can benefit from it, I'm going to ask you to share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. I read and reply to every comment, or email me at lr@chameleonresumes.com. Again, I read and reply to every email as well. So have a great one. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take good care.